in?
Yes, I will let you know when this one goes live here. But you're gonna be live on YouTube, but we can wait there. And I wanna go live with the Facebook,
Okay.
and then if you wanna press live in your phone,
Right now?
yes.
Just checking connection. All right.
And I will let you know if it's how it's working from here.
Let me know when it's time.
Okay, Sheldon, we're ready to go.
Hey everybody, happy Friday to you. And today we're going to spend an hour just going through some questions. So send them on in. I'd love to answer them for you. And just to get the ball rolling, let me talk about the weather. At this time of year, in the Northern Hemisphere, the weather gets cold outside. And what happens is that makes the air much drier. And then when you turn the heat on in your house or your apartment, that dries it out even further. So what does that do to your instrument? Well, for one thing, it's going to take the neck and it's going to make the neck shrink a little bit. And when the neck shrinks, oftentimes the frets stick out of the edge, and that's called fret sprout. This is perfectly normal. It's not a quality control issue. This happens here, and have him trim those fret ends and then round them over again. With a maple neck, you'll likely have to add some more finish. You'll likely have to refinish the neck. And that's unfortunate, but that's the way it goes with maple necks. What are some of the other things that can happen when the weather gets dry? Well, one of them would be your truss rod may need adjustment. And so what happens is you have a fingerboard and you have a neck. And even if they're a similar wood, like maple on maple, that doesn't necessarily mean that this piece of maple will absorb and lengthen and shrink at the same rate as the neck. And it gets even more prominent with, let's say, an exotic wood like ebony or rosewood or palfaro or wenge with maple. And so what will happen is one wood will shrink, the other will not shrink as much. When it dries, you may wind up with too much relief in your neck, or go the other way. You might end up with too little relief in your neck. And so that's the beauty of truss rods. That's why they're there. They're there so you can adjust the relief of the neck to account for changes in humidity. So that's very normal.
We have some questions there already, Sheldon.
Tim, can you talk about how COVID has impacted your staffing, your production, and delivery times? It hasn't affected our delivery times as much as I thought it would, as I was worried it would. Certain production is delayed. The D-Rock 5s and Hellboys are delayed due to COVID. But the NGs, combustions, D-Rock 4 strings, and also most of the custom bases have not been delayed, other than, let's say, bases with wenge necks, where we had a wenge shortage just pop out of nowhere. So COVID has affected us, but not as bad as we were worried. Now, that being said, we're not through COVID yet, and most of our professional customers haven't worked since March, and that's an extremely big problem for them. And it will show up as a problem for us, I would imagine, sooner rather than later. So I'm really hoping that these vaccines get out there and help everybody get back to swinging things. Fabian has a question. We're having a discussion on the Dingwall Owners Group about fret wire. Can you comment on why you don't use stainless steel frets? Is it more expensive? Is it a tone decision? To tell you the truth, it's more of an installation issue. Now, the stainless steel frets are really stiff, and the fret needs to twist as well as conform to the surface of the fingerboard. So you're trying to get a piece of steel to conform to a piece of wood. And in our experience, you run the risk of the fret compressing into the fingerboard, and so your fret level is not as, or your frets are not as level as we'd like to see them. So that's probably the main reason. Yeah, it's a little harder to work with, but I mean, we build fan fret bases. We're not afraid of a little bit of hard work. It's mainly the installation that we found was just a problem because we use such small frets. Now, one of the things that you'll notice with nickel silver frets is that they're softer than the string, and that softness is good because that allows the fret to conform to the wood. But at the top of that fret, it kind of squishes the top layer of the fret a little bit, and it puts these grooves in them, and it looks like your frets are wearing out. But what's actually happening is it's compressing the material on top of the fret, and it's making it harder. It's a process called work hardening. And so the nickel silver fret has got a fair amount of lubricity to it, so the string glides on it relatively nicely. And then when it work hardens, it creates a really nice, hard, slick surface for the string to ride on. And so really the life of a nickel silver fret is measured in decades. And so I wouldn't be too afraid about whether a bass has stainless or nickel frets.
Sheldon, we a couple questions here on YouTube.
We have a question on YouTube. Any news? Yes, we have a new combustion finish coming out called Eggplant, and we're looking forward to introducing that in the very near future. Well, of course, 2021 is in the very near future, so we'll probably announce that in January. And then we're working on a new NG finish, a couple of new NG finishes. One of them we released a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Black Forest, and it's a nice mature color. A lot of the NG finishes are really fun, and this would be fun's older brother. And so we're gonna balance the two of those. So if you like an NG, but you want a color that's a little less subdued, and you don't want to just go with black or white, then Black Forest is a really cool color. We're also open to color suggestions. So if you have an idea, please send it. It's in line with the NG or combustion pricing. I can't speak too much about that. So wink, wink. Maybe, maybe not. But we will release information as soon as we have something that we feel comfortable sharing. But it is a very good idea, and we do have a lot of people asking about that. One question is, dude, your basses just arrived to Israel, and they're awesome. So well done. Hey, awesome. Thanks so much. Our basses have been in Israel for quite some time, especially with our friend Orlu Bianiker. But this is a new dealer for us, and we're really happy to be working with them. And Israel is such a cool country, so it's really cool to have our bases there. So I'm glad you like it. Francesco, are you still fitting carbon fiber spars alongside the truss rods in your neck unless it's requested? Because we're looking for more of an old school tone. In the case of afterburners, similar. Typically, afterburners don't require carbon fiber, but we can add it if the customer desires. And in this last year, we've been rethinking how carbon fiber goes into necks and what's its purpose and where is the best place to put it. Typically, where luthiers put carbon fiber in necks is not the most efficient way to use carbon fiber. Now, I'm not talking about Steinberger or Parker. Both Steinberger and Parker did a really good job, and Modulus did a really good job of the utilization of carbon fiber, but a typical wood neck is not the best utilization of carbon fiber. And we're looking at a bit of a hybrid version of that, and we're working on that right now. And we're having really good Kaya is asking, are you guys going to sell at Sweetwater or Guitar Center? That would be interesting, but if not, that's still cool. We have no. I mean, we've talked to Guitar Center in the past. We've said no for various reasons. Sweetwater is an interesting company because, man, you got to admit they're pretty good at what they do. So I won't say yes or no as far as Sweetwater goes. In the meantime, though, the dealers that we have, they're on the smaller side, and we kind of like that because we're fans of brick and mortar stores. We're fans of bass stores where, you know, they're passionate about bass, and that's all they do is bass. And so we have quite a few really passionate, really knowledgeable stores in our network, and we appreciate them. And Fabian is saying a super P shape with 3 pickups. That's something we've never done. That's a good idea, Fabian. Thank you. Nick Hughes, newest Hellboy news, if any. I hope you're doing well, bud. Thanks, Nick. Yes, Hellboy's the very first production run is underway, and we will do 4 production runs of Hellboys. So if you got your order in at the very first, you'll be one of the first, and if not, well, then you'll be in the subsequent runs. Hellboys have taken a long time. It is a very complex instrument, and it was quite a bit outside of our wheelhouse. This is the first one we've done such intense graphics with. And it's a new factory. It's one of the best factories in the world, but it still required some time to but rest assured the Hellboys are looking extremely well right now, extremely good. Can't wait to get them into your hands. Jason saying, there are many dealers that are much more supportive and can give you really amazing support. Jason's one of them, as a matter of fact. Fret Nation, by the way. It's all about as much support as possible. Thank you, Sheldon. Fret Nation loves working with you, and we love working with you, Jason. Man, you run an amazing business, and you're one of several dealers in the United States that we're just super happy to be working with.
Amazing pictures, too.
Felipe says you do amazing photos as well, so thank you for doing that. That's a service that you don't get paid for. That's a service you're donating out of your own time. So that's one of the things that we like about working with the people we work with. They really care about what they do. And the answer to what's the best one we've ever built? Well, it's the next one. But really, each model I love for a different reason. I love a Super P because it's 2 knobs, and you just get this. It just allows you to be a musician instead of, let's say, a jet fighter pilot with switches and knobs and EQs and all that kind of stuff. And then I love the jet fighter style bass where you can get so many different tones just with a flick of a switch and a turn of a rotary and punching up the EQ or cutting some EQ. So I like all varieties of what we do. Each one of them, I couldn't pick a favorite. Omer, how are you? Great job as usual. Always great to hear you speak about Dingwall basses. Happy holidays. Thank you very much. And let me take a moment to explain it together. I've been thinking a lot about how diverse things have gotten over the last little while, and I would like to see maybe some more variety in my own personal news feed so that I can have a better informed opinion on what's going on with politics. And I'm going to do my best in 2021 to look for alternate views as much as possible so that I'm not as one-sided in my thinking on politics and on world events, and just try and be a little bit more open-minded. So that's my personal goal for 2021. Definitely would like to see the world working together more and less punching each other out. That's one of the beauties of being in the music industry is it's a really friendly business, and all of our competitors we're also good friends with. So it's like being part of one big happy family. Brian's asking, are there any hard case options available for the D-Rock? I've seen very few of these around. There is one hard case option. It's made by Enke, and it's a rolling travel case. You can fit 2 D-Rocks in it, and it will protect them through no matter what you could throw at them, other than, let's say, maybe a fire. They're wonderful. They wheel through airports just great. I love traveling with my Enke case. They're a little bit on the expensive side. The other option is what we do, and that's a gig bag, and it's a very tough and sturdy gig bag. Typically, that's what's most popular with our customers. And let's say if you're doing sessions and things, it's just easier to transport your instrument in a gig bag. I recommend gigging. An alternate would be a keyboard case and just have it cut out for your gig bag so that you can throw it in the back of the truck. And when you get to the gig, you can pull out your gig bag and carry that to the stage. So those are my two recommendations. Hard shell cases are not as protective as you would think. And in the history of Dingwall guitars, we've gone back and forth between hard shells and gig bags. And we've had a little bit of shipping damage in each, but by far the most shipping damage was in a hard shell case. The bases slide around just a little bit. It doesn't take much. And you can put a headstock through the end of your case quite easily if it gets dropped. So I'm not a big fan of hard shell cases. Rick Wilson just bought the Amethyst Anniversary 5 from Melbourne Bass Center. I wish I had bought a Dingwall years ago. For an off-the-shelf bass, it's incredible. We feel like you're very similar to us, to our personalities in Canada. I think I can't wait to get down to Australia and experience the culture firsthand. But real big fans. Hi, Sheldon. Greetings from Toronto. What's your favorite pickup wiring option for the afterburner basses? I like the 3X. And the reason I like the 3X is it's kind of like all the best traditional Fender tones. So you've got the traditional Fender bridge tone, then you've got the Fender Music Man tone with the bridge and middle together. Then you've got the neck and bridge, which would be a PJ or a JJ. And then you have the neck by itself. And if you add the toggle switches, then you can have J and P tones in the same bass. And it's all with a Fender-ish instrument, almost all. And so this gives you a chance to, when you're recording, with a Fender-ish instrument, almost all. And so this gives you a chance to, when you're recording, dial in the tone very quickly. And if you're playing in a band that plays a lot of variety, man, you can have all those tones at your fingertips. So that's my favorite, the 3X. Brian's asking, any plans to stock even more F sharp? Felipe, could you scroll that down a bit, please? Okay. Sorry, Brian. Even more F sharp 170 string set variations, or maybe a 174, 175 set for F tunings. Probably not any more varieties for F sharp standard, but one thing we are trying to do is we're going to try and stock a variety of strings that covers the majority of the alt tunings, so that them in stock and we can ship them next day. If you have suggestions for what you'd like to see, let me know. So far, the standard 174 has been very popular with our customers for F sharp tuning. Got a Scott Dixon double case for my D-Bird and D-Rock, recommended by Rob Vanderloop. Very good. So I imagine that's maybe a European version. So Scott Dixon double case. So keep your eyes out for that as well. Have you ever considered building guitars? Would buy a Dingwall guitar in a heartbeat? Yes, as a matter of fact, definitely. We have built guitars in the past. That's how we got started, actually, which is why the name is Dingwall Guitars, not Dingwall Basses. The only thing keeping me from doing that is the fact that we are backed up 2 years on bass order I put into the business. I would like to honor those people that are waiting on their custom instruments. So that's where all our energy is going these days. Once we get caught up on those orders, we actually have guitars on the drawing board that are just waiting for us to, do the final details on before we go into the prototyping phase. And I think they're pretty cool. And I hope that when we bring them out, that you get a chance to play one and that they are popular. Laminated necks add stability due to the grain direction changes from what I know. Yes, that is correct. Laminated necks do not increase strength, they increase stability. And the reason that they increase stability is wood is not a perfect material. It's organic. The grain flows, and it's not perfectly straight. And so increased stability is wood is not a perfect material. It's organic. The grain flows, and it's not perfectly straight. Complementing itself, and rather than all the grain flowing in one direction in any particular part of the neck, then you can have a much more stable neck through humidity changes. With the caveat that humidity changes will cause those laminations to move slightly, and you may feel the blue lines along the laminations, but the overall stability of the neck will be much better.
So we're frozen in Facebook. I want to read you the live stream.
Okay.
You can keep going with YouTube.
Hi, Sheldon. Greetings. Got that one. What's the difference between one-piece neck and a two or three-piece neck? It looks like I just answered that, and Jason beat me to it. So thank you, Jason. Any new models or finishes coming out in 2021, plus a shout out. We're always experimenting with finishes, and our finisher, Paul Hilliker, is a master finisher. He's as good as it gets in the guitar industry. Now, we've since added one of our employees from the combustion side. His name's Hugh Fisher, and he's a very talented artist. And so Hugh is augmenting Paul's already high skill level, and the two of them have been cooking up some insane finishes. So my prediction is all through 2021, on a regular basis, you're going to see finishes that you've never seen come out of the Dingwall shop before. And I'm really excited to share some of those. We have some dealers that they order in bulk quantity from us, and then rather than spec out the instruments, they tell us to make me something cool. And so that's what we do. We put those two guys together, and Ryan Marshall also adds what excites them, and they're right there looking at the wood, so they can tell what color is going to work best with those particular tops, and they do an amazing job. Which bass can you get the most tones? A 3X with 3 toggles you get by far the most number of tones. And by 3X means 3 pickups. 3 toggles would be a series parallel switch for each pickup. And so what that does is it takes the internal coils inside the pickup and it rewires them in either parallel or in series. And in series, that gives you a high output with lots of mid-range. And in parallel, that gives you a bit of a scooped mid-tone with a little more sparkle on the top end and a little less output. And so by sending the rotary pickup selector, you already have a lot of variety at your fingertips, and then you do those combinations between the 3 pickups. And you could probably get away with no graphic EQ or no onboard EQ just with that pickup switching system. It's really amazing how many tones you can get out of it. But then when you add the EQ on top of that, man, it's infinite.
We're back on Facebook, Sheldon.
Apologize to our Facebook friends. We had a bit of a glitch there, but we're back online now, and appreciate you hanging out there waiting. Lou from Mexico City, how are you? From Kubo, one of our favorite bands and one of our favorite bass players. Good to see you, Lou. What else do we have here? We have somebody commenting on awesome, and I hope you enjoy it once we bring it out. It'll be on a quilt top bass, so once you see it, you'll totally get the name. And we're looking forward to bringing that to you in 2021. Joel is saying, hi, greetings from Honduras. Very nice to meet you, Joel, and what a beautiful part of the world you come from. So hello, I'm glad to see you here.
We had a question from Raymond from the post in the morning there on the top.
Raymond is asking, please make the Super J and Super P available as a ready-to-play model. I can't wait for my ABZ 5 custom to arrive. Well, thanks, Raymond. We've been getting a lot of requests for that recently, and we are very seriously looking into that. And I think it would be cool because those are 2 models that, to custom make them, they are an expensive bass. but they are an extremely where you need a more traditional tone and a more traditional look. Both of those instruments are pretty awesome in that regard. Miska, the basses you make are absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait to own one someday. Well, I'm really glad to hear that. Thanks so much, Miska, and I hope you do get that opportunity, and I hope you really enjoy the experience. Kevin's saying, hello from Nova Scotia. I just set up my D-Rock with half rounds, and I love the tone. Hey, awesome to hear. Hey, Kevin, half rounds. Were those GHS, or what were they? Write that in the comments, please. I'd be interested to hear. Any riff challenges coming back in the next few years? I found the last one really fun. I'm glad you asked. We don't have anything officially set up yet, but we've been talking about that internally, and that is definitely something that we and would like to open it up maybe to different styles of riffs. So maybe have one groove-oriented riff, one rock-oriented riff, one metal-oriented riff, one clean-only riff, one distortion-only riff contest. I think there's endless possibilities for that, and I really love seeing the amazing amount of talent that our customers have, and the people that submitted, and you know, they put it out there. So I really appreciated that. I think I've got all the questions there.
Yeah.
How's the Saskatoon winter? Today it was brutally cold, -23, which I guess is not as bad as it can get here. Tomorrow we're looking forward to much warmer temperatures. Here's an interesting thing. Saskatoon, the location of Saskatoon influence on how we build instruments. And the reason is that Saskatoon in the heat of summer, it can be 35 degrees, which, what's that, 105? Or somewhere around 100 degrees Fahrenheit, and very high humidity. I've seen humidity in the 90s. And then in the wintertime, it's the complete opposite. It's drier than the Sahara Desert, and it's cold, cold, cold. And so we see these fluctuations in humidity that we wouldn't see if we were located next to the ocean or in a more temperate climate. And so as a repair person, I saw fingerboards with 1/16 inch cracks in them. Every winter, the phone would ring off the hook with people needing truss rod adjustments and setups. And so that's one of the reasons that we were very specific about the truss rod design we use and how we install it in the stable. We had a base leave -40 in Saskatoon, fly all the way over to Greece in 40 plus weather, and it was still in tune. And as a matter of fact, the customer picked it up that evening and went and played, and it was still in tune. So he hadn't adjusted the tuning since it left the factory in Saskatoon. And it was an 80-degree swing in temperature. Kevin is saying, D'Addario half rounds, extra long scale. Well, I'm glad that you had a chance to fit them, and I'm going to assume that was a 4-string, because I'm not sure if half round 5 strings would fit, but if they do, please let us know, Kevin. How many people pronounce it D'Addario, and how many pronounce it D'Addario? For my entire life, I pronounced it D'Addario, and apparently I was wrong. So the correct pronunciation is on order through Base Direct. I live in Scottsdale, Arizona. Is it possible to ship directly to me? That would save a lot of shipping and potential damage. Unfortunately, David, that is not possible. It's part of our policy not to drop ship because of it going through customs. Technically, Base Direct is our customer and you are their customer. And you know, a simple little detail like that can just blow things out of proportions when a base tries to go through customs. And the last thing we would want is your base to be confiscated because of a paperwork error and confusion over, you know, whose customer is whose. So we just made a policy: we do not drop ship across borders. Sorry, man. But I hope you really enjoy the base when you get it. And Base Direct are excellent as quickly as possible. Any models coming out at a lower price point? I'd love to own a Dingwall but as a 13-year-old, it's harder to make that money. Oh man, I feel your pain. Yes, we do plan on bringing out less expensive models, and one of the reasons for doing that is, there are areas in the world that you can't get our bases, and the reason is because we're just priced out of the market. So one of the challenges is we're a small company, and small companies have high costs of doing business. They just do. So we've got that working against us, but we're growing, and we've been working on new models that have the level of quality that we want to achieve, but we're working at stripping down to the essence of what that quality is so that we can offer a basis. 13, it still may be a little bit pricey for you, but it's at least achievable, with a summer job. So hold tight, we're working on it. And I appreciate you asking that question. Okay, thanks, I understand now. Should be very near production. Golden sage to ice blue color shift with ice blue blocks. Wingy neck, yes. Very cool combination. Matter of fact, is that a D-Rock? I think I might have seen that in production. I can't say for sure because that's out of my area, but there was a very cool ice blue D-Rock I saw recently, and that's going to be mind-blowing. Are you open to customers sending a special specific wood for the body of an ordered base? For example, Irish bog oak. Interesting. Your experience. Well, that's interesting. My first instinct would be to say no, because we can't control the quality of the wood, and we don't know how wet or dry it's going to be. And if it's coming from a customer, we can't guarantee that it hasn't been sitting somewhere and bugs have gotten into it. And so we only bring wood in from suppliers that we know have taken all that kind of stuff into account. But I would really like to try Irish bog oak. I've read about it for years. I've actually never seen some in the flesh, and it sounds really interesting. So maybe what I could do is look at our suppliers and see if they could bring some in for us. Be very interesting to try. Stupid autocorrect. Yeah, I have that same problem. Nice blue, that is, and we will post photos of it as soon as they are available. Speaking of photos, I used to do all the photos in the shop, and now my son Thomas Dingwall does the photos, and he's doing a great job. Thomas has a great eye, so a shout out to Thomas. You're doing a great job, son. Thanks so much. And so anytime you see a photo of a base, at least a professional, like magazine quality photo, you know that it was Thomas that took that photo. Jack is asking, hey Sheldon, how come Long McQuaid is your only dealer in Canada? We do two things. One, we protect dealers' territory. So if we have a dealer in Saskatoon or Regina or Edmonton or Calgary, we won't open a second dealer in that area because Long McQuaid is one of our only dealers. We do have one or two other independent dealers, but to be honest, Long McQuaid have really stepped up to the plate, and they're the ones who've been ordering. And so that's the reason for that. And to be honest, they're a really good chain. They really know what they're doing. They do a good job. And the guys at the top of Long McQuaid are all musicians, and they're all passionate. So it's not, just because it's big doesn't mean they don't have a heart. Sam is asking, sorry I missed out on that last live because it had so much latency. Yeah, I apologize about that, Sam. What will you say about the difference between a walnut body Z3 and a dual swamp ash body Z3? Thank you very much. Typically, we don't offer Z3s or Z3s in, it falls into the same sort of tone neighborhood as alder and as mahogany. So midi tone, punchy. it's not the most consistent wood weight-wise, so you could end up with a heavy piece of walnut or a lighter piece of walnut. It's beautiful. The tone of the Z series has grown up around swamp ash, though. And so the dual density swamp ash, what that does is it gives you kind of the best of both worlds. It gives you the tone of a heavier bass on your lower strings and the tone of a lighter bass on your treble strings. So what is that tone? A heavier bass has a more solid response to it. The instrument doesn't move as much when you strike the string, and when you think about it, the bass strings have a lot of mass to them in relation to the body compared to the treble strings. And so the string will be moving the whole instrument around quite a bit more than a heavier bass. And that shows up in the tone and it shows up in the response. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure which is more important, but both are very, very important. And so a dual density swamp ash Z series bass will have just an amazing response on the B string, and yet on the treble strings, it'll be more open. Right? It'll be more punchy. So my recommendation, I love walnut as a wood, but my recommendation would be to stick with the dual density swamp ash. Max is asking, ever considered bringing back the 0 fret instead of a nut? Then one can mix and match string gauges easily. You're right. Here's what would need to happen. With the 0 fret, if you look at most of the headstocks that are successfully fret, the strings do this at the headstock. So the headstock is physically wider. The strings are moved apart so that the string goes over that 0 fret through the string guide and then goes sideways. And what that does is that pulls the string against the edge of the string guide. On headstocks like ours, where the headstock is compact as possible and the string path is as straight as possible, unless we redesign the headstock, we won't do a 0 fret again. But that's a really cool idea. And I'll think about that some more. But so far, I wrote 6 string that Jacob Umansky plays, a one-of-a-kind, specially made for him, or is it a production bass? It is a one-of-a-kind made for Jacob. It was Jacob's finish idea, and he is an amazing player. And, I think we would leave that finish just for Jacob, just because it was his idea. If we would have come up with the idea, we could turn it into a production bass. But because it's Jacob's, we're going to let that be Jacob's signature model. But wouldn't it be cool if we did a signature Jacob Umansky model? I think that'd be a really cool idea. Any plans for a headless? Yes. Now, our company started with bridge hardware. That was the first thing I built. We didn't start with guitars. We started with bridge hardware. And so bridge hardware is something I like, a lot of the headless hardware out there, but I don't love it enough yet to put it on our instruments. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. I'm just saying for how I design instruments and how I want the instrument to balance, where I want the neck to be, how I want the knobs to feel, how I want the restraint to be. There's nothing out there that satisfies that yet, so I've designed our own. We are almost ready to prototype these, and hopefully they're successful and we can offer headless options in the future. But until we have a hardware solution, that's going to be a project that we keep under wraps. Rohel is asking, how much would it cost to ship directly here in the Philippines? Between $300 and $400, if it was a Chinese sourced instrument or a made in Canada instrument. But I have not heard if there's a free trade agreement between Canada and the Philippines. So I would expect there would be some duty on top of that. Is there a possibility to make a fretless instrument with fret markings through the whole neck and not only the sides? It is possible, but here's what happens. I talked about humidity causing the wood to move. This is something that is going to be for the rest of its life. Wood doesn't settle down in a year or 10 years or even 100 years. A 300-year-old violin will still develop cracks if you leave it in a dry environment. Wood just will always move with humidity. If putting that slot, it doesn't matter if it's wood or if it's plastic or if it's metal, it's not going to expand and contract the same as the fingerboard. And so you're always going to end up with maybe a little bit of line sprouting out from above the fingerboard, or maybe it's sinking in. So the potential for buzzing with the fret lines is pretty significant. So that is why we discontinued going fret lines right across the entire fingerboard. We've played with the concept of doing a segmented line where we have fret lines between the strings but not under the strings. And that may be something that we do in the future, because I do understand that people that play fretless want to be able to have that visual reference. So I totally get that. Don't give away any secrets, but any new well, you know what? There's nothing I can talk about right at this exact moment, but my job is to provide the vision for the company, and so I'm typically working 5 years out. And so within the next 5 years, we have new models, we have new signature models, and we have new pickups, we have new bridges, we have all kinds of stuff in the will be coming forward, and new price points and new models and all kinds of stuff. So the future is pretty bright. What's the closest? That's where I would look. Formula E, I'm not as familiar with, so I'm going to have to look into that. But yeah, anything that has anything to do with racing usually is a pretty forward-thinking, and they're usually on top of the latest colors, and so I like to go there for color inspiration. Rodrigo is asking, could you get me a Dingwall bass? Absolutely, depending on where you live. And the best person to talk to would be Billy, sales@dingwallguitars.com, or actually even before that would be to go to dingwallguitars.com, go to our dealer page, and see if there's anybody in your country or area that might have something in stock. And that would give you a chance to go try one out too. Lance is asking, hey, wondering what the turnaround is usually when ordering from Long & McQuaid. I ordered an NG2 6-string. You should hear something soon, and I would recommend talking to the dealer. Typically on NGs, it's about a year turnaround, but that would be from the initial order placed. So give them a shout. Make sure you're in good, clear communication with the person you ordered from, so that he can get you the most updated information. And if he has any questions, he can talk to Billy in sales, and he can get the latest for you. But should be pretty soon. We've been shipping pink squirrels already, and so yours should be pretty close. Fabian is asking, what's the longest time it's taken you from drawing board to a production model, and which model was that? I would say the record was the D-Rock. I think that was probably 8 years. And, considering the very first thing on base was 2 months, I think. It was really quick. The hardest thing about doing a design is if you're doing a design that references something from the past. And so the D-Rock references the past, the Super Series reference the past. And when you do such a fine line between taking it too far in one direction and too far in the other direction, and the only reason you'd reference the past is because there's an emotional connection already there. And as a musician, most of our customers have been playing for 10 years or 15 years or 20 years. And so they're very tied to instruments from the past. And so in order to have that same emotional connection, it's very difficult. So the D-Rock took, the body was relatively quick. Headstock, different versions of headstock, from like a mini body just inverted to all kinds of like the Super J headstock, afterburner headstock. None of them look quite right, and it took 200 tries at least to get the headstock that we have now. Then we introduced the prototype, and people complained it was too small, so then we did it again. And you have total control over that one instrument. When you're more of a production shop, like us, custom production, we use computer-aided design. Why? Well, in 1996, the factory burnt down, and I lost everything, including all my drawings. So at that point, I decided I'm going to learn CAD. I'm going to figure out how to have all this stuff back-upable. Back-upable, is that even a word? So that if anything happened again, we wouldn't lose everything. We'd still have our designs. So that's one of the reasons why we do everything in CAD now. The other reason is all of our custom order customers order a base that they maybe have never tried before, or maybe they tried a friend's, or maybe they tried one in the store. They order a base, their base doesn't show up for 2 years. And so it's really, if you're hand carving necks, man, it would be difficult over a 2-week period to hand carve the exact same neck that you did Monday 2 weeks ago, Friday today. And so with CNC machining, it's hard to believe. Like the CNC machine doesn't set it up. It only does the route. It's accurate enough so that when we hand sand, that base that you tried 2 years ago is going to feel very similar to the base we just built today. And that's one of the things that is high up on our values is consistency. So that's one of the reasons why we use a CNC in our production. It doesn't really save us any time. Matter of fact, if I was to total up all the time it took to program the machine and debug it and figure out all the problems, it's probably cost us more, but it's given us this consistency that we never could have gotten by hand building. And it's given us a tool that we never would have been able to have. It's just like this big paintbrush that allows us to paint differently than if we were doing things by hand. Long story short, that's how we produce. And so just doing a 7-string, one-off 7-string, or a short production run of 7 strings would have to charge crazy money. And so we've said no so far. That's a good example of using a chapter to answer in exchange of a sentence. I apologize, I got off on a tangent. Arlington is asking, are dyed maple necks and boards a new custom option? No, they're not, Arlington. And the reason is that maple is such a hard wood that we lack the ability to successfully dyed a thick piece of maple where when you cut all the way through it, the dye is all the way through. What happens when you dye maple is the dye really only soaks in a few thousandths of an inch. And as soon as you sand it, or as soon as the neck starts to wear, the dye wears off, like just like that. And so any repair work that gets done, any sanding work in the process is going to pull that dye right off. And it's, unless you're going for kind of that worn-in look, which is cool, we might do that at some point. Unless you're going for that specific look, it's really, it's to the best of my knowledge, impossible to dye maple properly. That doesn't mean that we don't keep looking into it. As a matter of fact, I spent probably 3 hours 2 weeks ago looking into the latest technology. Has anything progressed since the last time I looked? And unfortunately, no. Sad face. David on bass. We need mini Dingwall bass Christmas ornaments, 1 or 2 of each model. You know, I wasn't sure how those would sell, and I kind of liked how the flow of the traditional Dingwall bass looked. It kind of has that icicle look to it. But we have done a couple of D-Rocks, so they're not on our webpage. Sorry, if you talk to Billy in sales, he can hook you up. So if you're looking for a D-Rock, we do have D-Rock Christmas ornaments available. Henrik is asking, are there any limited edition finishes planned in the future? The stock colors are pretty limited as is today. Yeah, and one of the reasons, now I assume you're talking about the combustions and NGs. One of the reasons we had like left-handed, and then we introduced 2 pickup and 3 pickup versions. And so if you take 7 times left-handed, now you've got 14 variations, and then if each one of those has 2 or 3 pickups, who's good at math? You can figure that out. It's probably 100 different variations. It was driving everybody crazy. It was driving our production staff crazy. It was driving our retailers crazy. So we cut back the number of colors so that we could have the left-handed option and the 2 and 3 pickup option. That being said, yes, we've got a couple of limited edition colors planned for 2021. Send me your wishes though. Put it in the comments below if there's any color that you would like to see. Let's see a photo of it, or even just the name of the color. Be very interested. Let's see what we can do. Okay. Brent, sorry your feet cut out. Apologize about that, Brent. What is the closest sounding bass you have? Now, looks like I caught that one already. Do you have any plans to sell parts separate to full builds? For example, your super fatty pickups. You know, that's something that we've said no to for a couple of reasons. One, we're such a small company that we don't have the marketing power for our brand to be well known throughout the world. And so one of the reasons we've sort of kept our pickups to ourselves and kept our bridges to ourselves and things like that is that if we sell our parts and somebody builds a bass using our parts, it's, you know, maybe a few years down the road, if it ends up on the used market, will somebody buy it think it's a Dingwall bass? Is that a big deal? I don't know, maybe not. So maybe at some point we will sell our parts. There's a good reason why we should, but there's a few reasons why we shouldn't, and we haven't. So at this point, we've just said, you know, until we can make up our minds, we're just not going to do it. What we used to do is we used to make pickups for other builders, and we would put their logos on it. So there are pickups out there in bases that are Dingwall pickups, but they may have another builder's name on them. And if you're looking for Dingwall FD3s, you can go to Nordstrand, and Nordstrand makes an FD3 under license, but it's designed for parallel fret bases. And so you can get the Dingwall FD3 for a parallel fret base, just through. Kelly, they have a fretless concept in the works. Stay tuned. Thank you for your left-hand options. Appreciate that. Yeah, you know, I'm half left-handed, so I'm sympathetic to left-handed players. It is a little more difficult than I would have thought to offer left-handed instruments, but we've been doing our best, and so I'm glad you appreciate that. Thank you. I think we're getting pretty close to an hour. Matter of fact, we're pretty close to an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to answer one last question and then wish everybody a great weekend and just the most awesome holiday season possible during these COVID times. Excuse me. Hector has a question. Hello, Sheldon. Is there any dealer distributor in my country of Peru, Colombia? Which would be a little bit, would it be closer? You know, my South American geography is fading me right now, but for sure, talk to Rod in Overdrive Music. There we go.